go ahead and welcome Stefanie Spivey to talk to us about Westlaw. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Joy. Sorry I jumped in there too soon, but appreciate the introduction. And thank you all for giving us some time to talk about Westlaw. As Joy mentioned it was actually the summer before last that GALILEO came back to partner with us for Westlaw campus research for all of the four-year institutions and various other colleges across the state. So everybody knows the rest of the story. The pandemic hit, so we weren't able to come out and do these kind of trainings for you last year. So I'm really glad that we have the opportunity to review our system with you, because your students have access to a platform now that is extremely helpful. So without any further ado, let me make sure I'm still, can I just get a thumbs up that my screen is still being shared? You guys?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Kendall. All right, so I promise today is not going to be a boring PowerPoint slide presentation. If you see in the bottom left corner, there's only 10 slides. But what I really wanted to do with the time that we have today, my 20 minutes, is go over a very quick overview of the platform itself, so you guys have a better understanding. As you are aware, the title, the name is Westlaw. That's obviously the parent company. But for our campus and our four-year institutions, we really have a model and a platform in place that helps your students not only to research the law, but also to come in and find good information if you're doing any research for companies. A lot of folks will come in and if they have any business programs in their school, their students will use our system to do a deep dive into different corporations to get some really good, helpful information. But also any kind of international law or international studies programs. Those are really going to be some of the areas that your students can come into Westlaw and get some good information. So if you've been reading what's up on the screen, just a little overview of what West Campus Research is, and I kind of just gave you a summary. But basically, every area, every discipline, every area of study that your students are learning about, it's going to intersect with the law in some way, shape, or form. So what we're going to see here in a minute when I dive in live to our system is just how easy it is for your students to go in, access case law, access statutes, so they can understand what has been codified, what's been put into the law. But then we also have a lot of what we call secondary sources. Those are going to be some basically like legal encyclopedias, if you will, where folks have devoted about 6 months of time to analyzing specific topics, and they basically break them apart for your students. For example, if your folks are doing any kind of research on First Amendment issues, diversity, inclusion, discrimination, some of those hot topic buzzwords, they're able to go into our system and not only find the law pertaining to those topics, but find applications of how different scholars have analyzed how that law affects their specific, area. So we'll go into that. And then within campus research, you'll see this is actually a screenshot of what the homepage looks like. So again, it's very, very simple for your students to use. We make it very streamlined where if they're coming in looking for case law, they're able to see that very quickly. And then just type in their searches like they're searching on Google. So we'll see that in a minute. But just keep in mind, it is a very easy service for them to use. And as I said, not only are your students able to go in and access business information and the law, but we also have a whole wealth of news content in there. You may or may not see in the screen share that above the Westlaw logo, our parent company is Thomson Reuters. Reuters is probably a name you guys are familiar with, Reuters Media. That conglomerate is actually, that is our company. So all the Reuters titles, we have all their news, but additionally we have, state-specific newspapers and publications, broadcast transcripts, and I'll show you some of those in a minute. And then again, I've kind of already jumped the gun on Company Investigator. I'll show you how easy it is to search that and find good information on specific companies. But last, I wanted to wrap things up, and what we'll go through today is how to access some of our international content. So in addition to international legal resources, we have some folks will, if they're in a language program, for example, maybe they want to look up newspapers in the native language. So you're able to find a lot of that in here as well. So without further ado, kind of jumping around here, I'm actually going to jump straight into our website. And so here you are. And as y'all are aware, your students don't need any kind of login to get into Westlaw Campus Research. They just click the link and it's going to take them to this homepage that you all see right now. Searching our system is so simple. Like I said, you can basically just come up to the search bar at the top of the screen and type in your search. Sometimes folks, particularly those who are any kind of pre-law programs, they're going to be searching from the angle of they've been given a citation, which is basically just the numbers and letters they string together to find a specific case. So they can input that up there. But as you saw in the gray text, you can enter in terms, citations, database names. So maybe they know a specific book or an encyclopedia or a treatise that they're looking for. They can search for that, but truly anything. So that's going to be the lifeline for anything that you want to do in Westlaw. So again, can't stress enough, if you are trying to guide your students and faculty to this resource to research, if you can remember just one thing from our time together, just direct them to that search bar. We call that our global search bar, and they can do any search in Westlaw from there. Now here's where I throw in the caveat, and this is where your folks can get a little bit more savvy with their research. You can do anything by searching that, using that banner, but also down here below where you see the hyperlinks from cases down to international materials. If you know specifically the database of what you are searching for example, I'm looking for case law on First Amendment issues, I can actually click that link and search just right from within there. If I were to click it, you'll notice that, let's see, sorry. Right now at the top of the screen, it says I'm searching cases. So that is your indicator. If you were to input terms in there, for example, First Amendment, and I put it in quotations, and by the way, that's just a little trick you can do that focuses in on specific language. So that way you don't pull up results like anything with the word first or anything with the word amendment. That kind of restricts it to, I just want things that actually say First Amendment. Anyway, if I were to search right now, my search world would be case law, because that is where I'm searching from. So I hope that that makes sense. Over here on the right side where you see the words all federal, that is the jurisdiction I would be searching from. To click, or to change the jurisdiction rather, you want to click in this white banner, and then you can change it. So if your students are looking for laws related to the entire US, they're going to keep it at all federal. But let's say they really just wanted to restrict their results to Georgia case law, you can change it and do that as well. So I just want you to know it's pretty simple. But again, when we're speaking about jurisdictions, this is just restricting our search world to the state where I want to find the laws from. So I'm going to keep it broad today and just go back to all federal and save it. But basically, that's what that banner is indicating to you, that if I were to hit that orange search button, I would be searching for all the First Amendment case law. If I ever want to return to the home screen, you're going to click the logo in the top left corner. And, again, I could have run the search from there, but let's just say I want to do it here broadly. Now, what happens if I search from this page as opposed to the previous screen is I am searching across all of these databases. So this is the broadest type of search you can run in Westlaw, and it just basically means I'm casting a net across everything we have in our system, and I'm going to retrieve any results that are relevant to this topic from the jurisdiction I've selected. In a nutshell, that's what you're doing in Westlaw. So I'm going to hit search. And this is going to be very, very broad. I didn't put a lot of terms in here. So obviously you're going to want to input some more terms to be a little specific, just so you know, if you're trying to see to infinity and beyond the results that you can get, 10,000 is the max that you're ever going to see. So again, if you wanted to be a little bit more specific, you're probably going to want to add in some more terms. But just for the sake of this quick demonstration, I just wanted to show you what your results would look like. So when you run a broad search like that, I can now restrict my results by, here's the cases, here's all the statutes related, regulations, etc. Secondary sources is going to be where you find those encyclopedias that I was mentioning. And those are traditionally going to be the best friend for students in an undergraduate setting who don't have the legal background, if you will. That's where you're going to want to go to find those articles where somebody has interpreted the law for them. But I wanted to just scroll down on the overview page to show you that we basically give you a highlight of the top hits across all these categories. So of all the areas that we pulled relevant information pertaining to First Amendment issues, it's going to show you 1 or 2 cases that are on point, perhaps a statute related to it. So here, obviously, I just searched for the First Amendment. That's what it pulled up. Any, regulations or just anything related to it. So here's a secondary source from a Yale Law Review journal. Again, this is going to be an article that somebody has devoted some time to researching this issue as it pertains to whatever subtopic they were analyzing. So again, pretty straightforward. If I see something that is interesting at this point, I'm just going to click the hyperlink. It's going to take me to the full text. Oops. All right, so, once your students are at this page, then they can actually, read the law. And then in a second, when it pulls up, over here on the right, I just want to point out to you, every document in Westlaw is going to have this toolbar. And if you highlight and hover over any of them, it tells you what they do. But you're probably going to want to understand where the print option is. And that's going to be in this delivery options here on the top right. So if you click the drop down, that's where the print option is. And the reason, by the way, that you see the email option there is that the icon always defaults to the last method that somebody used. So if I emailed something to myself, that's why I see the little mail icon. But if somebody last printed on that computer, you're going to see the printer. But suffice to say, just click the drop down and you can see all your different delivery options. All right, so one other thing, again, I'm going back to the home screen and I'm kind of jumping around here, but hopefully let's just regroup here. You see how easy it is, whether you are searching case law, statutes, any of the types of documents we have, search broadly, and then, click on the links for the related content. Now, before I go into our company investigator, our news, and our international content real quick, I want to just show you in the background here the other pieces that are searched when you are searching broadly. And I know you don't see it on the surface. So if, for example, your students are doing any kind of federal research, they can just click into the federal materials tab. That's going to take them to the state code. The federal code, federal regulations, things like that. And by the way, regulations, there's obviously regulations pertaining to every area out there. So again, just think and keep in mind the cross-sect between every discipline, every academic discipline in the law. Another tab back there is our state materials tab. And I just want to point this out because if you're trying to point your students to a specific type of resource related to, the Georgia content, for example, come in and click on the state. And this is a nice landing page that you might want to direct your students to from time to time, just so they can see as a one-stop shop all the content we have related to Georgia, whether they're doing anything for, legal purposes, or maybe they want to search for our Georgia secondary sources. This is going to take them right there. All right. And then the last tab, the last two is searching by practice area. So again, if you are a student, dealing with environmental studies or health sciences, or, maybe a journalism program dealing with First Amendment issues or what have you, this is another area you may want to start in, because you can go in and look at the resources specific to your academic discipline. So just keep in mind that we have a broad way of searching in campus research, but we also have ways that you can specifically pinpoint and go directly to your niche. And then last is our tools. And this actually just takes you to the master classification system for all of our law, called the West key number system. This is sort of a backdoor entryway when folks are researching the law. We've basically categorized every specific legal issue into a chapter of our key number system. And the easiest way to think of the key number system is think of the Dewey Decimal System in the library. How every book has its place. It has its section of the library. That's kind of how it is for legal research as well. So whether you're researching international law or something local, everything gets categorized to a specific chapter of the key number system, so that for the last 150 years, people are able to go back and look at case law or the law in general on a specific topic. So this may be a nice thing, when folks are trying to find information, they can search this way, look at the topic, and then kind of just drill down and keep going down that rabbit hole. All right, so real quick in the last 4 minutes I've got here, I'm gonna just jump in and show you how easy it is to access our news and our company information. And by the way, let me start with international. Our international materials, again, if you're in any kind of international studies program or you're a teacher for an international studies program, it is as simple as coming in, clicking on these resources and going to the specific jurisdiction. I would say the majority of our international content is going to be pertaining to, laws in the UK, in Europe, but obviously we do have some, for Asian studies programs as well. And within the international materials, you can also link to our international news resources there on the right side of the screen. Just keep that in mind. All right, and now that I'm speaking about news, I want to show you the other way you can get into news is here on the home screen, just clicking on the news link. And again, I've already kind of given you guys the background that Reuters Media is our parent company. So all the Reuters information and resources are going to be listed in there, but also you can search by US news as well. One thing I thought was kind of neat to show you guys is our broadcast transcripts. And when you go in and search for the broadcast transcripts, basically maybe you just missed an episode of Anderson Cooper Live last night or something like that. You can actually go in and search by network. And it's really neat that you can just read the transcripts from that. So maybe you just want to catch up on the news in the morning, or maybe you want to see what the latest is on the Geneva Summit. Again, I'm going to type this in quotations, run my search. But you can see here how quickly we update this. And here we are, it's June 17th today. So we've already got some news here and some, broadcasts from the day. So it's very current. And, again, it's kind of a neat thing to be able to come in and just read the transcripts. So just another unique way that you can access the news on here. All right, so last up, I just want to dive in real quick to show you our company information. Again, a lot of your institutions have a business program. We keep the system very, very simple on here. When you are searching our business records, it's as simple as coming in, filling in the template boxes. So let's say you're searching for, I don't know, Chick-fil-A or Coca-Cola. I'm going to type in Coca-Cola and run my search. And by the way, you can fill in all of these if you have a tax ID or any of this information. You can fill that in to get more specific, because sometimes, as you see with companies like Coca-Cola and these big conglomerates, you're going to pull up the parent information, and then you're going to have to kind of sift down and figure out the child, if you will, that you're searching for. But again, for purposes of this quick demo today, I'm just going to show you broadly how to use this service. And while that's pulling up, I had actually pulled this morning because just for the sake of time, I just want to show you when you run that search, it's going to take you to a results list just like this, where I have 20 results listed. But over here on the left, you can actually utilize the filters. And by the way, filters are going to be throughout Westlaw. So if you want to expand upon this and really look at the information on a company pertaining to some subsidiary, if you will, in Georgia, you can utilize the filters that way and just basically filter your results down. Otherwise, just click the hyperlink for the appropriate company you're looking for information on, or create a report. And when I do that, it's going to give me lots of good information on this company. We have our family tree listed here as well, which gives you basically associations between this company and all of its subsidiaries. And all of these are hyperlinked out to get more information. And then last, you can also generate a report that gives you lots of good information. So depending on what your course of study is, again, there's lots of good stuff in here that can help folks to really get some good information on these businesses. And I think we have over 305 million private and public corporations that your students can research. So lots of good information. All right, so I think I'm coming up on my time. I want to be respectful of Kendall, who's coming up next. So while that is still loading, just wanted to put on here, if you guys want to jot down my contact information. I actually live local in Atlanta. So I'm a Georgia native, and I think you can probably see that football behind me. That's a Georgia Bulldog symbol. I'm a double dog, went there for undergrad and law school. So go Dogs. But anyway, if you guys have any questions for me, please feel free to reach out. One service that we provide is we can set up some online seminars. If you have students in a particular class that you want them to have a training for this service, just feel free to reach out to me and I can help coordinate that or send you guys some good user guides and things like that. So thanks again for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much, Stefanie. And next we have up Kendall Bartsch from Third Iron. I don't know why I can't get that out of my mouth.
No problem at all. Great. Well, I will start by sharing my screen here. Okay. Somebody can also give me a thumbs up just to make sure that you can see my screen, or just a shout out.
Yes.
Sounds good. Okay, great. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks everybody for taking time out this afternoon. As Joyce said, my name is Kendall Bartsch. I'm the CEO and co-founder of the library technology company Third Iron. So very pleased to be here. I'm looking forward to giving you just a quick update on what we're working on here as a company. And in short, our mission right now is to deliver a next generation linking solution for libraries. And we've been working on this for the last number of years. We have our services used by lots of libraries kind of around the world. And it's all about enabling libraries to connect researchers really from any point of discovery, whether they start in your library or out in the open web, connecting out to your journal material in a fast, reliable, and informed one-click fashion. So I'm going to kind of break down what we mean by a couple of those terms here in some of the slides. But that's what we're up to. We're really looking to, really kind of recreate the linking experience, moving beyond kind of the typical ways that people look to get the content, and instead really providing a next generation technology driven by AI that can really help address a lot of the fail points that currently exist in getting people out to content. Just quick background on Third Iron, we're used by over 1,200 different libraries across 35 different countries and across Georgia. And we work with libraries that are in all sorts of different types of organizations in Georgia, colleges and universities, from big research universities to community colleges. We work with libraries that are in hospitals, so hospitals in the Atlanta area, as well as the Veterans Administration hospitals, and corporate libraries as well, along with some government libraries. So it doesn't really matter kind of where that researcher is located or where they're affiliated. What this really indicates to us is that all researchers have a common interest, which is, hey, give me the content in a fast, reliable, and easy way. Really, the impetus for us in doing a lot of the work that we're doing as a company in creating this next generation linking technology is just reflected by a lot of the fail points that currently exist in the information journey when people want to get to content. And as I'm sure everybody here on the call can relate to, we know that if a researcher starts in the library, which is great because that's half the battle, right? We have to kind of get them in the library to do their research. And whether they're using your discovery service like EDS or Primo, or in a database like PsycInfo or Web of Science or whatever, kind of the common technology that unites all of that to getting people to content is your link resolver. And link resolvers are great, but they are something which was based on a protocol which was developed over 20 years ago. So there's oftentimes a lot of common steps that end users need to go through once they get a little excited about finding a piece of information, a citation in your discovery service or something, to the actual full text itself. And it's kind of illustrated here on this slide. The steps look something like this, where I do my search, I click on the get it button or find full text button or whatever it's called in your library. That brings them to some sort of link resolver menu that they need to digest and understand. And if there's more than one source, to pick the source that they want. What they kind of see next is dependent upon whether or not they're on campus or off. There might be an authentication point there. Presuming that that's successful, what vendor page they land on is going to be dependent upon the source that they selected. Might be familiar, it might not. And even as something as simple as trying to find the PDF button is going to be varied depending again on the platform. But presuming that they find that PDF button, they're going to get to the actual article that they're interested in. Now, for those of us that have been in libraries for a number of years, we sort of lose sight of the fact that this process is at best time-consuming for researchers, but it oftentimes could be confusing. Not to mention that just overwhelming. Lots of information there that they're trying to digest. What is a Science Direct and how is that different from an EBSCO host? And what is this thing called an embargo? What do I need to do here? And the library literature reflects that it's not uncommon for end users to just give up. It's just too much information to process. They think that they've done something wrong. So rather than continuing on to that or through that process to get to full text, they just abandon the process and try to go elsewhere for the full text. Ask their colleague or friend, or maybe even go to the reference desk and say, hey, find this for me, right? But even if that process works, in some cases, we know that it doesn't in all of the cases. And in fact, because OpenURL is based on metadata matching between disparate systems, it's not uncommon for end users, even though they're seemingly doing everything right, for OpenURL to break, to end into dead links, or there's not enough metadata. So rather than getting to the article, it goes to the journal page, or even sometimes the vendor page, or they're authenticating when something is open access. So a lot of things can kind of happen in that process. And again, if we look back at the library literature the last decade or so, we know that there's lots of studies that point out that researchers are really confounded by the link resolver process, even though it's something that's essentially required each and every time that they want to get to a full text article, irrespective of what the point of discovery is within the library. Now, if I don't start in the library and I just decide to use something like Google to do my search, that's great. I seemingly get a bunch of results back. But again, depending whether I'm on campus or off, my ability to get to full text is going to be determined by things such as my IP address. Could be that my library actually subscribes to something that I'm linking to from Google, but because I'm outside the IP range, the publisher doesn't recognize me, so I'm hit with a paywall. Don't really know what to do at that point. Seems like I don't have access. Or it could be that the access that my library provides doesn't come from the vendor at all, but instead comes from the publisher, but instead comes from an aggregator. But there's nothing in that DOI link that Google is using to get to full text that's going to tell me anything about my entitlements from an aggregator. So again, we know very quickly, and again, it's probably resonant for everybody here on the call, that when a researcher tries to get access to something, it's oftentimes not as easy as we sometimes hope or think it is. That even within the library, there could be lots of fail points through the OpenURL process. And for people that are out there in the open web, it's just sort of good luck. Maybe it's open access, or maybe you're in an IP range, but what you're entitled to, what you need to do to get access to it is all completely opaque for the end users out there. So again, we see that this difficult access has bad outcomes. First and foremost, it just means that some people don't get access to stuff that they otherwise need or they should have access to. Almost counterintuitive, the use of electronic resources, stuff that's online on the web, requires instruction. Sitting down with an 18-year-old today to tell them that this is the way that you need to access something is totally counterintuitive to what their expectations are, right? For different screens to load can waste time. And we hear from faculty in particular that time is a precious element for them, precious thing. So anything that they can do to reclaim time, make them more efficient in the research, they welcome it. It could be insufficient or delayed research. Can't seem to get access to this one thing. Maybe it's more important, but this other thing is easier. I'm going to do this other thing and just ignore the first thing. It's insufficient, or it just could be, again, that delayed research, that difficulty in accessing something again, you submit an interlibrary loan request, you might get it eventually, but maybe 2 or 3 days later beyond what otherwise should immediately be available. And as I mentioned through interlibrary loan, definitely studies being written now about how difficult access actually leads to unnecessary help desk and interlibrary loan requests. Again, either because open URL breaks or people don't understand the process or they're lost in the open web, they turn to the library and say, hey, help me get access to this thing, which again is otherwise immediately available electronically from their library. And finally, and not without any kind of weight here, is just the notion that people are dissatisfied with using the library. Again, we convince them to start in the library, but the systems just seem too difficult to use, doesn't really return the results that they're looking for, and it just gives them more incentive to kind of go outside the library for their research. So lots of opportunity, we think, here to kind of reinvent this linking experience. And it's something that we've done as a company the last number of years, which we are presenting to the market, or have presented to the market with what we call our LibKey Services. So in kind of a rapid fire kind of way, I wanted to just sort of talk through what the basis of this technology is, and then just show some screenshot examples of what this looks like kind of out there in the wild. So first and foremost, as a company, again, the last number of years, what we've done is that we've created a number of different knowledge bases. And I'll kind of explain how we knit all these together. But just real quickly, we have a knowledge base of article level metadata. We ingest article data from sources like Crossref, PubMed, JELC, and other kind of metadata syndication services, which at the end of the day gives us a very, very good understanding of all the different articles that are published across all the different journals really around the world that have any kind of scholarly import or impact. Second is that for all the different libraries that we work with, we understand their entitlements. We understand which journals libraries subscribe to. And we do that by getting data feeds from systems like ALMA, from EBSCO, from OCLC, from lots of different vendors out there that, again, just provides us awareness of what journals libraries subscribe to, from what sources, over what date ranges, things like that. And also very new that we're going to be bringing online here in the next couple of months is something called EBSCO availability. We've actually worked with EBSCO to create a system that we can query the EBSCO database to ensure whether or not an article is actually available before we create a link to it. And this is actually designed to kind of solve a very pervasive problem of linking to EBSCO, which is, your holdings report says that, yes, this journal or this article is available from EBSCO in this database, but it turns out that for whatever reason, it's not. Maybe it's too new, or they've neglected to load that article or whatever. And the end user kind of sees that, bad looking, article not available, error message from EBSCO, and nobody knows what to do at that point. That all has to do with just, again, kind of gaps in EBSCO coverage, things that they're aware of. But we've been able to create a system with EBSCO where we can actually know in advance before we create a link to EBSCO whether or not it exists. And if it doesn't, we won't create a link to EBSCO. Fourth is that we have very good awareness of open access availability. We ingest data from sources like OnPaywall and others to have a very, very comprehensive understanding about what articles are available open access. We know how libraries authenticate, whether or not a library is using EasyProxy or Open Athens, and what's required to create a link to content through that authentication system. And finally, we maintain a knowledge base of article retraction status. So we know, based on information about that article, whether or not it's been retracted, so we can inform or alert the end user even before they get to the article itself, whether or not it's been retracted. So lots of different knowledge bases out there that we as a company kind of keep ourselves busy managing and tracking and whatnot. But what this enables us to do then is that if we have an identifier, something like a DOI or a PubMed ID, which is many times contained in the citation record of an article in Primo, in the CDI, or in the databases or whatnot, we can use that DOI then to match that against article metadata. So we know which journal it's published in. We know whether or not a library subscribes to it and from what sources. We know whether or not EBSCO actually has that article, if EBSCO is a source. We know whether or not that article is available open access. If it is not, we know how to create links to that content based on a particular library's authentication. And we know whether that article has been retracted. So we can make these calculations based on that DOI in milliseconds. And then we can then determine the best available source to deliver full text for that article, whether it's an open access version of record copy, whether we need to link to a subscribed journal from a publisher that the library subscribes to, whether or not we need to create a link to an aggregator like EBSCO, or whether or not the library is opting or electing to show a non-version of record open access copies like manuscripts. And if all else fails, we can default back to alternative delivery mechanisms that the library has to fulfill access, whether that be through interlibrary loan or document delivery or whatnot. Again, do all those calculations in milliseconds, but that ultimately means then is that we can serve up or create a link to the full text of the PDF or the HTML directly. So again, we start with the identifier, we match that against our knowledge bases, we determine best available source to create a link out to the content. That, in a nutshell, very, very quickly, is what LibKey is. So what does LibKey kind of look like in the wild? Well, LibKey is something that you can integrate in your discovery service. And this works with really all leading commercial discovery services, Primo, Summon, EDS, OCLC, works with open source systems as well, Viewfind, Blacklight, or if you're developing or have developed your own custom bento front end, you can integrate LibKey into that environment as well. But once you have it integrated, you see these nice little links that appear there that says download PDF. So rather than, again, having to go through that link resolver experience each time you want to get to content, you can just click on the download PDF, and presuming that it's either open access or that you're on site, the next thing that the end user is going to see in a second or two is the PDF of the article. If you're also off-site, you'd obviously have to authenticate, but after that point, then you advance on to the full text. So if discovery is something that's important for your library, know that LibKey is something that you can integrate into that environment. LibKey is something that you can also use in your databases. So here's an example of Web of Science, for example, with LibKey integrated in your database. When somebody clicks on your Open URL button, the Find It button in this case, the next thing that the end user is going to see is the PDF of that article. We're bypassing all of those steps otherwise required for Open URL, using the different AI-based technology to get directly to the PDF. LibKey is something that can also be used to resolve DOIs. So if a researcher says, hey, I'm looking for this article, and they have the identifier, they can go to libkey.io, pop that in there, and we will bring them directly to the PDF based, again, on library entitlements and open access availability. If they are a researcher who really likes to spend a bunch of time there on the open web, they can download our browser extension called LibKey Nomad, which will notify at the point of discovery whether or not content is available. See that little blue button down there, so you can download it, click on it, and we're going to bring you to the PDF of that article, again, either from library entitlements or the open access version of it. And finally, which is really exciting for us, LibKey is actually starting to be integrated natively into the fast-growing number of new public discovery services. And if you haven't clued into these yet, definitely watch this space. Sites like Semantic Scholar, Meta, and a number of other ones are kind of giving Google Scholar a run for their money. Great platforms, well-indexed information with lots of different aspects and features of them that are really appealing to kind of a new breed of researchers out there that are looking for an open web alternative to Google Scholar. But unlike Google Scholar, which is relying on link resolver integration, these platforms are natively integrating LibKey, which means that if I'm from Georgia State and I go to Semantic Scholar, I can see a button there that says access this PDF via LibKey, and we take over at that point to get that researcher to the content available from Georgia State. So lots of really exciting things happen in this fast-growing space of public discovery services. So in short, with LibKey in library services or out there on the open web, we're looking to provide that fast, reliable, one-click access to content where we enrich that linking experience with EBSCO availability and retraction information. And what does this mean for end users? I'm going to click through these slides here real quickly. Just note that we have a number of case studies now that we published over the last couple of years here from Seton Hall. Just in short, LibKey meets user expectations, and they're delighted by the fact that they can just click on a button and get directly to the article. That's what they expect to see. They're thrilled to have the library deliver that level of performance for researchers. Saves a bunch of time. We've actually had a university quantify how much time LibKey is saving their researchers. In short, combined across their community, they're returning about 100 days of time, which was lost to doing nothing other than clicking through different screens and waiting for pages to load. And it reduced their help desk request by 25%. So significant impact here for the University of Manchester out in the UK. And University of Wisconsin Stevens Point in Wisconsin, obviously, actually quantified the reduction of their what they call unnecessary interlibrary loan requests. They published this last fall at the IGLU conference. Their unnecessary interlibrary loan requests dropped by about 40%. And again, they trace that back to just having faster, easier, clearer, better access to content. So whether we're looking at this from kind of the researcher side or whether we're looking at it from the library side, it's really sort of, uncontestable at this point that having a linking mechanism that is faster, better, more reliable, and is something a researcher can come across or use anywhere in your discovery service, in your databases, or out there on the open web, definitely helps everybody across the board. So that's what we're focused on as a company. We're really excited by it. Really proud to support the libraries, not only here in Georgia, but really around the world. So with that, I would just say thanks very much. And we can definitely leave time here at the end for whatever questions that folks might have. As Stefanie also noted too, feel free to contact me. My email address is right there, kendall@thirdiron.com. If you're like, wow, you talked way too fast, and I have questions about a number of things, feel free to contact me at kendall@thirdiron.com. More than happy to follow up with more details about what we're doing as a company.
Thank you so much, Kendall. I appreciate that run through of your company and the services provided. If anyone does have questions, this is the time. If you have them, please type them into the chat. Or if you would like to ask your question aloud, you can use the raise your hand feature. And if we don't see any questions come in, give it a little bit of time. Okay, yeah, as a reminder, this presentation will be available again for you to review. And the slides, both of their slides will be available, and then you can get their email address from there. They'll be available on the Sketch platform in a few minutes. Okay, well, if we're not seeing any questions come in, I want to go ahead and just thank our two presenters. Thank you to Stefanie from Westlaw, and thank you to Kendall from Third Iron. And Adam is saying great presentations, thanks. He's from Point University in Georgia. So great having you two here today. And I think we'll go ahead and end it there. We appreciate it. Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Thanks, Joy. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.